Welcome, fans, to another live edition of the Hannibal TV this week, live on YouTube. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. We have a lot of news to get to this week in the wrestling world. I am joined always by the Godfather, the founder of the Hannibal TV, Hannibal himself. And Hannibal, I think we should probably start off the show with discussing the milestone.
Yeah, we hit actually two milestones this week.
Milestones.
250 million views here on the Hannibal TV and 400,000 subscribers. So thanks not only to the viewers, but people like you, Jack, John, everybody that's helped over the years provide content. King of Connecticut, PCW Ultra, my buddies in Texas. There's been so many collaborators on all levels and everyone behind the scenes, of course, that a lot of them don't want to be mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And what an accomplishment that is. I mean, the Hannibal TV has been, Canada's top combat sports, pro wrestling, MMA, a lot of UFO content. We're branching out into some true crime stuff, all kinds of interesting content for the fans. But I have to harken back to when you first started the channel. Did you have any idea that it would be the massive success that it is today?
I would say it's going to be even more massive because I have a lot of things going on right now, and you're aware of some of them that we're not going to talk about public. But I truly believe we can hit 1 million by this time next year. And when I started it, it was really something to just post Great North Wrestling DVDs on. I had a lot of people forget I was with other YouTube channels, just posting my content on them, and it was successful even before that. But I thought YouTube was more complicated. Then I realized that I could actually do this stuff myself. And then when we were posting the Great North Wrestling matches, although a lot of them got tons of hits, some of our match videos have millions and millions of hits on this channel. I noticed that the interview random times I would just ask people questions. I wasn't even really an interviewer back then. Those were getting the big hits. So then we were just like, okay, well, when we do an event, let's interview somebody. And we were really, people can say whatever they want. There was pirated shoot interviews online before that were not legally placed online. I was the first to produce shoot interviews just for YouTube. And everyone thought I was crazy. People didn't understand why I was doing it. Now everybody does it. Literally everybody does it.
Yeah, and I think even your, when you look at history and those that are, new to the game, it's certainly a more saturated market now. I think no one can argue, looking at the record, that you and the Hannibal TV were first past the post, as they say in the shoot interview proliferation on YouTube, and thus have a very special place in history. And I should also mention the fact that this channel has a unique, no doubt due to your personality, your takes that we hear about from the fans on professional wrestling and other topics, that there are some really die-hard, hardcore fans of the Hannibal TV that are very appreciated. And I'm proud to say that I started myself as a huge fan of the channel, and I am very, very pleased and proud to be a little part of it and contribute to what will be a growing legacy, no doubt.
Yes, and you helped us through some times when I needed some assistance with it. So I appreciated that very much and still do appreciate it. But one thing is, there's been some things that have come and gone, been popular for short times, and I already stopped doing stuff. We've been consistent, and now some obstacles that have been in the way are out of the way, and everything is onward and upward. And not only are we covering wrestling stuff now, but everyone that knows me knows I'm quite obsessed with UFOs. So we're definitely going to be doing more and more UFO interviews. I got a big one with Nick Pope, the former, he used to be in charge of the British UFO desk at 1 p.m. on Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to that. And as far as wrestling, I am in Wichita, Kansas right now to focus on my training. I've been doing 2-a-days most days. I'm getting TRT, which I was approved for here, as well as I started today a couple other therapies that are helping me overcome some of the injuries I've had over the last few years, which my body has been through a lot. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. Mm-hmm. And I hope that we can do a strong comeback of Hannibal this year. Not necessarily comeback, but put on some really good showings this year in matches, not only in the U.S., but in Canada as well.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about the year to come for Great North Wrestling and our association with a couple of other promotions. And I think this weekend we'll have some huge news to announce that will be literally. And I know a lot of people say, history in the making, but this is really going to be history for the Hannibal TV, yourself and myself. So onward and upward from here.
And it has to do with wrestling somewhere where I've never wrestled before. So that should be pretty cool. And I have a lot of fans there, so it should be even more cool for that reason. So there's a lot in the works and a lot of collaborations also in the works that you guys will see probably sooner rather than later.
Yes, indeed. Let's jump into some of the major news of the week that really stands out, and it's traditionally a time, well, in the modern era, traditionally a time where some of the activity in the pro wrestling business is lessened, but there seems to be quite a crop. And I wanted to start off by asking your impression of Eric Bischoff's comments on Mercedes Moné. He was referring to her, and I'll read this quote of her tenure thus far in AEW. And I had the opportunity to see her live in Toronto, Ontario, when they were taping Collision, and the crowd response was somewhat tepid.
Dynamite,
at least.
Dynamite, I think it was. I don't think they Dynamite. Yeah, they don't tape Collision in the secondary towns, do they? Wasn't that Dynamite?
It's so memorable, I've forgotten.
I'll look it up while you're talking. Because I edited some of the stuff you sent, I think. That's why I remember. I had my fill. No, Ottawa was Collision. Because
it was Dynamite in Toronto.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I will address this one thing. They have horrible media people. I get why WWE didn't want to give me a media pass to Raw for Kansas this week for Wichita. They only had 6,000 in a 16,000 seat arena. Very lackluster show. But AEW has given me passes in the past, and you. Kansas City, Missouri tonight. It's like 2 hours from here. I was willing to go cover it. And you have to admit they're dying. They're literally hitting all-time lows. Rampage was another all-time low this week. They didn't even respond to me. So, I mean, I don't want to go down that path, but I'm just saying, like, they were doing better in Toronto when they were giving us media passes. Now they're falling, and it's like, have their media people just given up? But we won't go there just yet. I'll let you finish your question.
Yeah. Before I read the quote, I note that the media person, when I was in Springfield, Massachusetts for the Collision that nobody on the poster was at, responded 4 days after the show, but that's neither here nor there. Bischoff states Mercedes Moné is not old. She's relatively young. She was a massive star in WWE, massive. And she came to AEW, and it's been a quote, and this is the one that's getting all the clickbait, unmitigated disaster because of her creative and because Tony doesn't know how to produce her. He made the statement on 83 weeks and indicated that in WWE she was protected. They knew what her strengths were, clearly not promos, and understood what her weaknesses are and hid them effectively. What do you think about that, Hannibal?
Well, I don't think she was that big of a star in WWE. I don't think she was at Becky Lynch level. Maybe I'm wrong. I had heard of her, but she wasn't at Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch. She was maybe a little bit above mid card, but now they've put her in a position where I hear they're paying her $4 million and she has her own dressing room, which rubs some people the wrong way, and she comes in with an entourage. I don't have anything against her. They're overpaying everybody in AEW, way overpaying them, especially considering they're on track to lose at least $40 million this year. Maybe they don't care, but I watched the AEW. AEW just hacked me and turned off my mic. I saw the press conference in Arlington, Texas this week, where they only seem to have like maybe 100, 150 people with Sting there. They even brought Sting out of the. I wonder how much they're paying Sting, by the way, to have like the quote unquote Legends deal. But I will say this: Mercedes Moné, to me, had the best promo of anyone that was up there. She looked like a star. She was in character. It didn't necessarily make me want to buy a ticket, but to me, she came in with the 2 belts. She looked like a star and she did her thing. The other things that happened in that, I mean, Sting basically said he was going to be there but not wrestle. Yay. They had, and again, this goes back to UFC press conferences, which is supposed to be real, and the Mike Tyson thing. Everyone's talking about the press conferences because there's altercations. Nothing happened. They had at one point Swerve Strickland confront Lashley, and I like both of them, but they both gave boring promos in this. And then they had a confrontation, and Tony Khan goes in between, gives the most like fake acting ever, as if he's separating these guys, but they didn't even appear to be trying to go at each other at all. And then Lashley just walks away. And it's like, this is fake. You can make it better. But anyway, all I have to say is, yes, she's overpaid, but there's so many that are overpaid. I mean, Ray Phoenix, which you're going to talk about later, supposedly he makes $600,000 a year to do nothing. I don't think Mercedes Moné could really be a top star because she wasn't in WWE. She's like a mid-card girls wrestler. Maybe I did hear in the news today Trish Stratus hinting, "Oh, I'll never wrestle outside of WWE, but maybe if the right thing came along, that type of thing." That's kind of putting herself out there. Well, WWE's not using me. I would consider Sasha Banks, but I'm a WWE person. In other words, throw me a lot of money and I'll do it. And I actually think that would be good. That even though they don't really need to hire new people, they should fire a bunch of people that aren't over or just sitting at home and bring in someone like Stratus, because I would watch those segments. I watched the press conference just to see what they would do to try and get people to buy tickets to this stadium show, which apparently they had about 6,000 sold in the first day, according to what Dave Meltzer was saying. They were expensive tickets, so they had a not bad gate, but it wasn't like a 15,000, 20,000 first day ticket sales. But yeah, I wouldn't say Mercedes Moné is a bad hire, and for the amount they waste on other people, like some people are making just ridiculous amounts and they're over to the zero level. I don't think it's that bad. Bischoff just likes to say in the news, but I don't see Mercedes as a top star. If they were to get Becky Lynch and bring her in, she could be a top star. I just don't think Mercedes Moné has like the top star level in her because of her gimmick. Just, it's not that appealing. Like, I got to go see Mercedes Moné. And it wasn't in WWE. It's the same thing. Okay, she's good looking. I'll watch her match. That's about it. And I see the same thing in AEW. And I think they've tried harder in AEW. They've tried to push her as a top star. They have supposedly more creative freedom there. She hasn't lost a match. They're not using her every show. But like, I think they've given her more opportunities, in my opinion, than they have in WWE. And supposedly, even though their matches are totally scripted, you have more input in AEW as far as what you want to do, if you're one of the lucky ones that aren't sitting at home. which she is one of the lucky ones.
Yet getting paid. What do you think about the whole question around the women's the so-called women's revolution of a few years ago, when contrary to tradition in terms of promoting cards, the old school mentality was that a female women's match should be an attraction. There should be one on a show. And then we had that shift with the Mae Young tournament, and again, the so-called women's revolution, where they were pushed pretty hard. They had multiple matches on a show, and I'm not talking about the television product per se, because some males in a certain demographic will watch that, and that will get views. But do you think that the AEW shows that I've been to live, they had 5 or 6 women's matches, and I just found it to be a bit much. Am I just too old school in my thinking, or are they still a real draw?
I'll get to that, but there's actually 2 fans on here that have good comments. I noticed in this, she pronounced her name on the Texas thing as Mercedes Moné. And there's a lot of people that say Monet. I thought it was Monet, so I was kind of like, does she always say it or not? You have a good point. People should be on the page. Is it Monet or Monet? Everyone should say it. And Regu or Overlord, she doesn't have anyone famous enough. There's nobody on her level of fame as a female in AEW. That's just the hard truth. Paige would be the second best known, but she's had injuries, and it was so long since she was featured on WWE. Like, she's not even really a draw anymore, to be honest with you.
No.
But someone like Stratus,
Lita.
Or Lita, yeah, like even one of those would be better, because there's just no. Someone said, "Oh, she had a great match with Chris Statlander." Who's Chris Statlander? I've heard the name.
She's a very good talent. She's a very good talent.
Is she Ronda Rousey? Like,
no,
bring Ronda Rousey in to do the job, or a small few. Make her an offer she can't refuse. But no, when they brought her in.
Don't you remember when Tony brought Ronda in for an ROH match?
Yeah, which was nuts. It's like, you're not even going to put her on the show. But to answer your question, I do feel that, although I think, and this is because I think of certain laws of what you can show on the internet in certain countries, from what I understand, that has to do with why women's match get crazy hits on the internet. Overall, they do way better than guys matches. So I think that's one of the reasons why promotions keep those matches going. But there's an audience for it. I mean, Glow is now getting better. Not Glow, WOW. I always get them confused because it's the similar, what's his name? David something that's involved with the behind the scenes. The same announcer guy. And I'm sorry I forgot his name.
And I was just talking to Tiffany Million today. Do you remember her from Glow?
No, but he was also involved in Wrestlicious, David something. Someone's going to tell me the guy's name. But to me, honestly, Rhea Ripley's really over. Liv Morgan is really over. All the others just kind of blend together. And I don't really have that much interest in wrestling these days. For me, I'd rather watch a girls' match than a guys' match that I don't know who any of the guys are, just because at least the girls are good looking. And just to me, it's just too choreographed. But do I think the women's revolution is like that period's as hot as the Hulk Hogan period or the Attitude Era period? No, I do think, and this is honest to God truth, that if they wanted higher ratings, they would do the bikini stuff. That would honestly probably get higher ratings, but I understand it's a different era. And they are more athletes now than just models getting paid to do sexy things that would get ratings.
And
so now they can't do that.
Russo got for that, and yet his ratings were so high.
And they say it's entertainment. They say it's entertainment, and there's there's sexiness on Netflix and in other places. I mean, I don't know. I don't plan on becoming a regular viewer anytime soon, so it doesn't really bother me, but I understand how people feel like if women's wrestling used to be more of a special thing where it'd be like one, maybe two matches on a card. Now there's an equal amount in some cases to the guys, and in some ways it's overkill. Just because you look at it in a way as just like WNBA isn't as popular as an actual sport as the NBA or women's hockey for all of our Canadian fans. I don't know if I've ever seen a women's professional hockey league with anyone seriously in the crowd, but in wrestling, because it's on the same show as men, they try and do it more, but whatever. I have no problems with it because I generally just don't like today's product, and it's not going to make a difference to me unless there's a real big overhaul, whether there's 2 matches or 6 women's matches, how much I'm going to watch. And I don't really like the male. I'd rather watch attractive women's wrestlers than small flippy men wrestlers. That's just the honest to God truth. That's just
fair enough. And to that fan's point about the pronunciation, I know this is a little before your time, Hannibal, but I couldn't figure out why Mike Rotundo was Rotundo or Rotunda. That was a bit of a heat getting.
That's still a mystery. It's still a mystery.
I blame the dream for that one. Next, interesting news story, and I'll get you to, because you're the stats guy, you're the Tony Khan math guy of the channel. I think it's worth noting, as you pointed out, the business is allegedly hotter than ever. You talked about the attendance at Raw. Well, the rating was the lowest since September, according to WrestleNomics. Raw averaged 1.386 million on Monday, which is down from last week, 1.714. In the 18 to 49 key demo, that's important, Raw averaged a 0.43 rating, which is a decrease from the week before, 0.45. Lowest total viewership since September 23rd and lowest in the key demo since October, but Raw ranked number 3 in cable television behind NFL Monday Night Football between the Cowboys and the Bengals, which wasn't a good game. Thoughts on that, Hannibal, and the so-called alleged hottest the business has ever been in WWE under the flagship of Cody Rhodes?
Well, again, they're making more money, but they have more sources of money than ever. And I think Meltzer said it right now. They are on like a tipping point where it's getting kind of stale. We know, like, nobody has any doubt that Cody Rhodes is going to beat Kevin Owens on their big Saturday night main event. So now they're saying, oh, we're going to bring back the Winged Eagle belt and the old Intercontinental title belt, and we're going to make it old school. So and we're going to bring in Jesse Ventura. So even though they're smart, nobody cares about the match that has any brains, because who wants to see a match if you know what the ending is going to be? Kevin Owens is not going to win the belt. And especially they're not going to bring in the Winged Eagle belt and just give it to Kevin Owens. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, they got to rely on gimmicks, but I agree with Meltzer. It's on a tipping point. It's like, it's not doing bad, WWE, but it's at a point where people are kind of getting sick of this. It's like very predictable. There's nothing really that interesting going on. The whatever they call the tribe thing, I always forget. What's the Roman Reigns thing?
Bloodline?
Yeah, to me, come on. How long has this been going on for?
Years now.
How long do we have to see this for? Mix it up. And I know The Rock's Samoan, but I mean, it just seems like so many of The Rock's relatives, they're good. They're good too. But it just seems like the same thing with girls. When you fill the crowd with similar looking style of wrestlers, at some point it becomes repetitive. And I do think they're all good, but to me that angle is just boring. And maybe going to Netflix, if they start using Cena and Rock again, it'll shake things up. But there doesn't seem to be like a new guy that's really over for long term in either company, because Cody Rhodes is at the peak that he's going to be at. I really don't. Unless if he turns heel, maybe that'll make a difference. But as far as a baby face, I don't think. I think he's getting stale as a baby face.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. I thought he was stale from the moment he won the belt after finishing the story deal. But
Yeah.
I was disappointed, and you talked about this briefly before, that when they migrate to Netflix, the rating is going to remain the same. Do you think that's a mistake, not going from PG to PG-14, or even maybe 1 hour back in the good old days when it was mature audience?
Well, they're a corporate company and they're all about making money. Just as we were saying the other day, it appears like they didn't bring any of their main stars here to Wichita for whatever reason, even though they're I mean, if you want to call Seth Rollins, but they showed a backstage thing with CM Punk. There's no Roman Reigns. I don't think there was Cody Rhodes. It's like they try and save money at all corners, and they're a cheap company, and apparently they get a lot of money for sponsorships. So they're not going to risk losing any sponsors for uh, for that reason. Like they to go to Attitude Era, maybe they'll get more viewers, but they're now getting paid the same amount for Netflix for either the next 5 to 10 years. Netflix has the option to pick it up. So why would they change a product if they have guaranteed money? I guess if it starts really falling again and getting really stale again, that might happen. But for now, they'd rather probably just keep getting as much money as possible while they still can.
Why do you think Hannibal, in your lengthy history of promoting, I know it's on a different scale than producing a weekly program, but I think of this Bloodline storyline. It was the talk of the wrestling world year and a half ago, but it reminds me now they're stretching it out to NWO levels, which amazing when Scott Hall came down and from the crowd, and all the excitement around the early days of the NWO before they added 5,000 members, but they just stretched that out and reincarnated it several times. Why do you think it is that creative, when you've supposedly got all these creative people, TV people, etc., that there's that tendency to stick on the golden goose till the golden goose breaks?
I really don't know, but I will say this because I do not like long in ring promos. I never liked the Bloodline thing to begin with. I'm not, and it's nothing against the guys. I just don't. To me, it's just like, okay, these guys are going to stand around in the ring and talk. That's just not the type of wrestling I like. And I do like Roman Reigns as a wrestler, but to me, that was always boring. And now you're right. You have a good thing. It's like now it seemed like NWO was more entertaining to me. I don't know. I always liked it. And when they were in the ring, they were shooting. And maybe that's why, because when they had the WCW, and I'm not saying they were all great in WCW, but when they had those in-ring promos, which was maybe the start of why that's something else that might be dead now, but they just keep doing it. Because when they did it in the past, in the Attitude Era, in both companies, they were shooting on people. It was WCW shooting on WWE most of the time. But now they're not shooting on people. They're just going in there and reciting scripted promos. And it's been done for decades now. So to me, it's just let's revamp everything and throw a different thing of wrestling out there. But yeah, to me, I just never got it. And now there's like I couldn't even tell you who's in which part of the Bloodline because I just don't care. I know it's Roman Reigns and somebody on Cody Rhodes, I guess, on one side. I don't know. I really don't know. It's when it gets so complicated and you don't know who's in what, you just tune out.
Well, and as you pointed out, I mean, there's that with Hall and Nash, even though they were given such big contracts, there was an element back in the day as a young fan myself that these guys were outlaws. They were still, you could tell they were badasses. They were shooting. They didn't have the proliferation of the internet. They didn't expose their business, as Ben Hameen would say, on social media all the time. But then you've got Cody Rhodes coming out and making statements like you mentioned that he's the quarterback executing plays, and it just takes all excitement out of the product, I would say.
Yeah, as John said, he's a good lad. He's good as far as corporate. He'll just go out there and recite whatever they say. You don't have to worry about him. He's just like your typical corporate guy. He's good. To me, he's a good mid-card babyface, but he's not going to be the next Hulk Hogan, The Rock, or Austin. Maybe if he turns heel, because people like me that find him boring, and a lot of people do, because he just goes in and recites stuff, and he's very corporate. People that are more less by the book, like me, let's just say, they just want to puke at his stuff. And I'm not saying he doesn't have a good physique and that he doesn't try hard in his matches, but we've known for a long time now he's not going to lose the belt unless it's to like The Rock, Cena, or Roman Reigns. So it's like his matches. Why would I get into a feud when I know he's going to win? I just can't find anything interesting about him. Am I going to watch just because his promos are so good when he's not shooting on everything and just reading scripted stuff? It just doesn't interest me.
Well, yeah, you make very excellent points there, but again, they're making bank. They're highly successful, so I can't see it changing. And perhaps there's the argument to be made that which Meltzer does, that the business has evolved and it's always changing, et cetera, et cetera. But I definitely don't sense the same passion in the product.
It's not a ticket sales business anymore. That's the big thing. They stopped most house shows unless it's Europe, where they hardly go and it's still a new thing. There's fewer than I think they've ever run this year. And they haven't run any in the US since July. And then it's just going to be the Christmas week. And that's because they aren't making people want to go out and buy tickets to see this. As I said, it's so hot. Why do they only have 6,000 people here on Monday? There's not that much that goes on in this town. So, like, why can you only get 6,000? Mind you, that's more than double what AEW got here. But
still, for them.
But for them, it's like you're not making people. You're getting great TV content deals and stuff, and there's, because of this streaming and TV feud going on right now, people are just throwing money at companies. But as far as, I got to get a ticket to this is great. No, that's just not there, unless it's WrestleMania or something big. But even now, they want to stretch that out. Now I hear they want to do a second Survivor Series, so 2 nights of Survivor Series. They're already doing 2 nights of SummerSlam in 2025, 2026, 2 nights of WrestleMania. Can we really get that excited when it's going to be watered down and spread into 2 nights? You're going to have to come up with something great, but more. It's, as we said, it's about sponsors and making money, and not necessarily what's going to be the most entertainment or the best long-term for the business, because there is such a thing as overkill.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think that would be a big mistake. WrestleMania at 2 nights I watch every year, and it's kind of a test of endurance, to say the least.
I watched the first night a couple years ago, and I couldn't watch the second. I just couldn't do it. Someone says Dustin was more talented than Cody. I agree. And I don't even like Dustin because he ripped me off once, and I'm not going to get into that story again. But I will just flat out say this. I don't like him as a person because he did go through his demons like a lot of us do. But he's now making a ton of money and whatever. He just never apologized, never paid back. But he was entertaining. To me, Dustin was entertaining as Goldust. That was a great character.
I also liked him in WCW too, when his young babyface run, but definitely way more interesting as Goldust.
Yeah, that was good. And going off the grain is more entertaining, but people's livelihoods are the life. I mean, that is true. And again, you can either be a rebel and not signed like me, or corporate and signed. And there you go. That's just the choice of personalities.
Well, one of the interesting questions that the pundits like to debate endlessly, it seems, on social media is, who was the greatest wrestler to never have a WWF, WWE world title run? And one of them, a man I know you've interviewed, is Jake the Snake Roberts. And he made a kind of an interesting comment this week that I'd like to read to you and get your thoughts, Hannibal. He said that he never pushed for a WWF world title run. And he says, I carried a 50 or 60 or 75 pound snake around, and we'd be on the road for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. All your clothing, everything you got to carry. The last thing I want is a 10-pound belt to carry around too. Would I have liked to have had a championship? Yeah, of course. That would have been something. But I had several championships up until then. Maybe not the WWF championship, but I'd have several in Calgary, Louisiana, and Mid-South. I had it in Texas. I had it in different places around Mid-Atlantic. So I had my time with the belts. And then he goes on to talk about how on a show, Hogan and himself both got equal sort of pops. And they were going to do a program where a heel Jake was going to challenge Hogan for the title, and Vince quashed it. What are your thoughts on all that?
Jake spins the truth and spins stories a lot. I don't think they ever put the title on him because he had his demons, and he wasn't. You need to put the title on corporate people overall, or reliable people, and he wasn't reliable. And he was. Let's face the facts here. I don't think he was ever as over as a face as Hogan, as much as he'll try and say that he was. But apparently, they had a couple matches. One of them's online where there was powder used in a match, and it was a really bad match. But yeah, I don't think they ever would have put the belt on him, at least not then. Had he stuck around and kept himself together and had more longevity, he has had ultimate longevity. He's still relevant, but like when he went to WCW, it really pissed everybody off. And before that, he's admitted he's had demons. So it's like the reason they didn't put the title on him was, first of all, he may have been the main event of the B shows, but he wasn't really an A show main event guy. Today, he'd be better than all of the champions. So thinking about it today, yes.
Yeah.
Not all. I mean, I'll give Roman Reigns his credit and The Rock his credit. I would like to see one of them beat Cody Rhodes for sure. Cena his credit. But yeah, I don't think Jake ever would have been seriously considered because of his demons, his look. He didn't also have the look Vince McMahon liked as a champion either.
No, and that is something I believe years ago they had Pick Your Poison, the Jake Roberts story, that double DVD or triple that I bought, and Vince made a comment in there that basically, you know, he was a really over guy. He had these demons, but he also didn't really take care of himself, and it was a cosmetic business. It still is. To this day, perhaps more so than ever, and he just didn't fit that mold. But what do you think about him saying that he wouldn't have? I mean, he kind of half admitted that he would have liked to run with it, but it wasn't a big priority to him. With the money that comes with that, I think that's kind of BS too, don't you?
Yeah, because he said a couple of times in various interviews, including with me, he wanted the feud with Hogan, which he'll tell you. And I do like Jake. I like him as a person. I like hanging out with him, and I'm glad he's one of the lucky mystery or missing wrestlers getting huge money from AEW for doing nothing. But like Hulk Hogan allegedly made $25,000 a night, or if you were wrestling him, you made $25,000. So he was saying he was mad that supposedly he got booed or he got cheered over Hogan, which who knows if that's true or not. So they dropped it. Maybe Hogan didn't find him reliable either. And maybe there was concern he wouldn't show up for an advertised match. I don't know. But like if you're going to add a belt to your travel case for thousands extra a night, give me a break on that. And he said the same thing with Warrior. He said he was mad at Warrior at one point because they were going to do a feud, but then Warrior left. And then he lost out on all those paydays. So it's like, if you have the title, yeah, okay, I get how it's a pain. And I get if you're famous and you have to pull it out. And in those days, you had to travel a lot more. It's not just one day a week or maybe even less than that, how it is now. And then they made you talk to the fans. Now it seems like it's encouraged to be rude to fans if they
Mm.
come up to you at a non-autograph session because they all want to make money on the autographs. There's some I'm sure that don't, but it seems it's a big thing now that's supported. Oh, we don't give free autographs. Don't approach us on our free time. Don't approach us in airports, blah, 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 blah. In the old days, it seemed it was never. I mean, I believe one good thing we'll say about Carrie Von Erich. I mean, we say this again. Lacey said she would have extra. They would always get extra seats at a dinner table in case a fan came up. You'd invite them to dinner. They're the ones ultimately paying your paychecks. So to me, I mean, I'm just saying for Jake, if you take a title out, then suddenly everyone in line is like, holy shit, it's Jake Roberts, where you might be able to be incognito. So in those days, yeah, when you're on the road that much, I could understand him saying that too. The money overcompensates for it though. And today, for all the wrestlers that act like that, yeah, man, it's part of your job as a public figure to do that. Especially when you're not doing it every day now. I know CM Punk doesn't like doing it either, from what I hear. And I'm sorry about that. Because you see in the old days, pretty much all of them did it. Unless they were really kayfabing as a heel, and they were on the road a lot more.
Yeah, and I gotta put over those old school guys that would take time for their fans. It seems to be, you're 100% right, a 180 shift. I remember the nicest guy that I ever met in person off site was my buddy and I were at a Subway in Barrie, Ontario, and in walked Brian Adams' Crush. And he sat down and talked to us for about 20 minutes. Late Crush, great guy, and that really made an impression on me. I thought he was a really class guy.
Part of it is probably now too that there's paid autograph sessions put on by WWE, so it might actually take away from their business. If, as I mentioned recently, back when it used to go to Hull, Quebec, they would have to walk through the fans to get to the cars. And you'd be able to get those autographs for free if you're from a middle-class family like me that could never have afforded today's prices. But yeah, let's hear more about that Crush story. I'm sure the fans want to know about that.
Well, he walked in and we were at the counter and ordering, and I just looked over and I said to my buddy, I said, that's Crush. And he goes, no, it's not. And I allegedly, according to him, in a high-pitched squeak, said, Crush. And he said, yes. And I was reading the Observer back then. So I called him. I said, Mr. Adams, nice to meet you. And he showed me his gold card. And we talked about Portland a lot. And he was kind of kayfabing. I said, what are you doing here? And it was after the show. And he goes, well, I'm traveling with Mr. Fuji, Double J, and Yokozuna, and I made a comment about, well, how did you get Yokozuna in the van? And we sat and talked honestly about Portland wrestling for a long time. That was one of the territories that I loved as a fan. He had his sub, which was, I still remember this, tuna with no mayonnaise, and I talked about Billy Jack Haynes and the Grappler. And Rip Oliver and all the port, and Don Owen, put Don Owen over as a great star, signed a couple of things for us, and I was just blown away at how nice he was.
Now, would that have been in the Hawaii Crush days, or would that have been in the Disciples of Apocalypse days, or the Macho Man feud days?
It was the Macho Man feud days, because he was in a stable he was with Fuji at the time, and he was in that stable. Now in Barrie, Ontario, it was a relatively small city then, so Macho Man was not on the card. I think it was actually, no, my time frame's all off, but it was definitely not Macho Man on the card.
Yeah, speaking of Hull, I remember seeing him against Macho Man in Hull, Quebec. They went around. They were again. I think we talked about it recently. You have a lot of the times the best feuds are with people that are friends, and I know that Macho Man, even when Crush wasn't getting booked anymore, he was using Crush as a bodyguard for his rap shows.
Mm-hmm. And I was a fan of his later work too with Brian Clark. I've had several conversations with Brian, and so has Jake Walker, who coordinate some of the interviews on the Hannibal TV, and I'd love to interview him too. But yeah, definitely a class guy. Made a huge impression, unlike some of the others that, speaking of Mercedes or Sasha Banks, who are virulently against even talking to fans in airports. And I can understand if you're in a hurry, you got to catch a connection, but you don't have to completely be adversarial like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's just funny, and I know I seem bitter when I get so mad about. Apparently, there's like 200 AEW wrestlers under contract. That was said on one of the Wrestling Observer radio shows last week. I think it was Mike Sepravini that said that. And it's just like they're all making so much money, and just thinking about how hard guys like Crush had to work to make their money, and Brian Adams, who I do consider a friend of mine. I hope to get out to Phoenix to see him in person one day soon.
Clark, you mean?
Yeah. Brian Clark. It just makes me mad because like they never got paid anywhere near the amounts that these AEW people are making without having to draw. And these guys actually had to draw to make money. It's just it's unfair. I mean, people can say it's good, but I don't know if long term it's going to be that good for the entire wrestling business overall. For the few that have the contracts, great. But it even seems like I'm no GCW fan or anything like that. But it seems like they're even AEW is like targeting a lot of the indies, and it seems like they're targeting even GCW lately. It's like it's not good because you need places to work for people to get experience.
Well, yeah, and I think there's an argument that can be made quite, conclusively that, and not to sound like the old fart in the crowd, but the territory system produced, even though guys were working harder, there were more guys making good, solid livings, be it, those that would homestead and settle in like Texas, or those that traveled around. And now there's very few really bona fide top spots where you can make a lot of living. And then, yes, AEW is, I've seen a significant decline in available talent for independent shows. Even here, we have a pretty good scene in Canada, but it seems counterproductive to, you think they would be nurturing a variety of companies and promotions, and not just the WWE ID program where we're going to get cookie cutter talent.
Yeah, and speaking of cookie cutter talent, and I get it. I mean, at least WWID, it's going to help because they're allowed to do indies, and they're probably going to be able to do them. And I don't know how it works with pay, if WWID pays them or what, but I don't know. It helps keep the indies alive in some ways, but because independent wrestlers don't make that much, so I guess it's helping fund them and stuff. But yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that in the past you would be taking the top guys, proven to be top draws from everywhere, and then putting them in the company, and they deserved it because they worked really hard for it in some cases for years. And just to be a wrestler, you weren't getting signed and paid to train. You actually had to go through hardship to earn your contract, which it's still like that in real sports like football and stuff, but in wrestling, like, and I guess Evander Holyfield's son is a good example. Like, he's more deserving because he's from a real famous father. But here's another guy. Would this guy have ever even wanted to be a wrestler unless whatever WWE paid this guy after football? Okay, it's Evander Holyfield's son. Let's sign him. I mean, would this guy have even been a wrestler? And if it makes him a star, is he going to stick around after he becomes a star? Because it's not like something he's always wanted to do. I don't know, but I get why they signed him and stuff. But to me, it's just hard to get excited about, okay, here's another guy that's got paid to train. It's just going to be like another cookie cutter type guy. It's why I don't want to watch it anymore. I don't feel the characters are there, the people that have paid their dues and have been tested. And a lot of people are getting their first matches on TV these days.
Yeah, which is an absolute huge mistake in my opinion. Before we leave the Jake topic, though, a lot of folks speculate and offer names as to who the greatest wrestler was back in the glory day that didn't get a run with the world title. You know, names like Roddy Piper, Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude. Who would you, if you had to? I'll put you on the spot because I know we didn't talk about this, but who would you put in that top spot? And Jake too, that didn't get a run with the world title.
That is a hard one. I'll think about that for a bit before I give you an answer, because I think that they did the right thing with the world title as far as the glory days. I don't really think it should have come off Hogan, and I think the Warrior deserved his shot with it. Slaughter, for what it was, I mean, he earned it. Macho Man and Slaughter was over for that period. I think for that, if you want to call it the Hogan Iron Sheik days, until I guess the Bret Hart type days, I don't think there was that many mistakes. Who did Bret Hart win it from again? I don't even remember.
Flair.
That's when it started to get forgettable. Yeah, Flair.
Twice.
There you go. I'll say that. Bret Hart, I mean, he was the right guy at the right time. And then even after that, I guess with Austin and The Rock and stuff, it was on people that deserved it overall. I wouldn't have changed much, but as far as the person that deserved it and didn't get it, oh yeah, Undertaker had it in that era too. That's why it meant so much more back then. You remember the people that had it. I don't know if there's anyone that really didn't get their shot at it that could have had the ball and carried it, because really all the top guys had it. And
how about as a transitional champion, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect? That's my vote.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm not going to deny that, but I'm just saying at that time, I don't know. He was over. He was over, especially I watched that Saturday night's main event match recently, Perfect and Hennig with Hogan. I just don't know, because Hogan was still so super over, and in those days they only really had it on the super over people, if that. That would have done it. But yeah, Kurt Hennig, what pissed me off the most about Kurt Hennig is when I guess they brought him back in the early 2000s when he was still in really good shape, and they just used him basically as a jobber. I guess they held the WCW grudge, but I hated seeing that. And I guess it ended after he had the little skirmish with Lesnar on the plane. But that, I mean, Hennig was, when he was with the West Texas Rednecks,
that was awesome.
We all know. I mean, I think that was his peak. I mean, he was great as Mr. Perfect. But I mean, if they had kept that going good enough, I think, for whatever reason, maybe we could have a whole discussion on that sometime.
But I think we should unearth the video from earlier this year when you did Rap His Crap. That was tremendous. I wish I was still around when you taped that, but that was definitely entertaining as all outdoors.
And I regret not doing my tribute at the show. That was a big mistake. Because we were talking about that, and I should have done it. But they could have taken the West Texas Rednecks higher, in my opinion, because even being in Kansas right now, there's a lot of people like the West Texas Rednecks in the U.S. and being in Texas, and a lot of people, especially at that time, there was kind of a big feud between rap and country and everything else. There was more. It was a bit less mainstream and stuff. I think at that time, I'll give it to him there. He could have definitely, if they had pushed him harder, been a better champion than Jeff Jarrett, because Jeff Jarrett is one guy that didn't deserve it, in my opinion. He was forced down our throats. And there was a lot of them in WCW.
Yeah, I agree with you, though, about the way that he was brought back in that early 2000s era. That was sad. It's just a really sad story all along. And then his son, for whatever reason, just didn't, I guess. And no offense to Curtis, or Joe Hennig, but the charisma just, I guess, didn't translate the same. Is that fair?
Well, and again, Hennig was from the territory days where he was on the road doing all this crazy stuff. crazy personality. And I'm not saying that's good because he died at his early 40s, but he was such a character and so entertaining. Where his son is another guy. I know he was at Harley Race Camp for a while, but so was Randy Orton. Like these guys were pretty much guaranteed contracts if they weren't even being funded at those early times and then brought right into development. I mean, it's not like they had the personalities, but at least Joe Hennig, he was in there for a long time and probably had fairly good contracts. I met his daughter, Amy, at a Harley Race Camp. I think she had more charisma and she had the hair and everything. And she's actually was a bit of a wild personality. But I think she ended up having a kid early or something, and that took her out of wrestling. But I remember thinking when I met his daughter also looked like him a lot in a way, and not in a bad way. She was good looking, had a very good physique, but she had the blonde, curly, puffy hair. And she was talented in the ring. But I remember she went out with us one of the nights after the camp, and she was wild. She was just as wild as he was. I don't know what Joe was like on the outside, but the daughter was. And Mike, I will agree with you, Timmy. If Michael Hayes hadn't ruined his freeboard push when they first brought him into WWE, if he didn't have all of his outside issues, he could have possibly carried it with the support of the Freebirds. And if in reality, if they were going to bring him in, pushing him as also a musician too, because he had that charisma and the Freebirds coolness. And I mean, I like the Bad Street USA song. And apparently that's what they wanted to do when they originally brought them in to Philadelphia. You guys can look it up on the internet, but they blew it for whatever reason. The demons and rudeness to Andre was too much, as discussed in our Andre the Giant podcast. But I'll agree with both of you that there was potential there. I could understand why not, but I agree there was potential.
And our last story of this edition, again, falls to AEW. I'm not sure, Hannibal, if you're following the ongoing drama between Ray Phoenix and AEW. He recently tweeted criticizing AEW that he was treated inhumanely and not provided medical assistance and dealing with an injury, kind of shades of the whole CM Punk situation back in the day where he went on record with Colt Cabana criticizing his medical treatment. Now he's since deleted those, but not good PR for a company that tries to put over an image that they really support their talent.
Well, I think basically from what I understand, could you put up that thing I sent you that said how much he makes?
Yes, let me find that.
Yeah, from what I understand, from what Dave Meltzer said, he's trying. Oh, that's not it. I don't think I think it's in your Facebook. But from what Dave Meltzer said, he's actually trying to get fired from AEW. But supposedly, and I'll get the proof. I'll get Jack to put up the proof from Fightful. Supposedly, he makes $600 a year, $600,000 a year, and he signed that contract. So I get it that he wants to go, and they haven't been using him or Penta well. I guess Penta's contract expired earlier. He has signed with WWE, but I mean, you compare them to CM Punk, and I like those guys, but they're not as popular, anywhere near as popular as CM Punk. I get why they want to get out, but it's like they're making, at least Phoenix, if this is true, he's making $600,000 a year to do nothing. That's a hell of a lot of money. And yeah, it does make, one thing I don't get about AEW is like, why not use these guys and have them do jobs because they're under contract? Why let them sit at home, especially if they're going to complain?
On the way out, yeah.
Like, put them out there and do jobs. I don't know what their policy is on that, but they haven't done it with anybody. Yeah, here it is. This is from Sportskeeda, not Fightful. Supposedly, he makes $600,000 to almost $1 million a year. He was earning $600,000 in 2022. So some of these guys have contracts that go up. So could I really feel sorry for this guy? I don't know. And according to what Meltzer was saying, it might have something to do with AEW. Might have a different policy than WWE as far as when you have an injury.
Yes.
You might have to pay for it up front. If they don't take care of it at the arena, if it's more serious, then they reimburse you. That's just what I'm thinking. But
what about the issue of adding injury days to the end of the contract?
To me, they signed a contract with that clause in the contract. So, I mean, that's what you sign up for. You could negotiate that. But keep in mind, I don't think these guys are that much more popular than when they joined AEW. I like them. I'm not hating on them. I would probably use them. If I was a big company, they would have I could see where they would have a place. They're much over than a lot of the AEW guys, much more over. But if you sign a contract, you're agreeing to the terms, especially a big multi-$100,000 contract. You know what you're getting into. I'm sure you have a lawyer review it. So if your mind changes, I get it. But at the same time, AEW, why the hell do they not use these guys? Why not bring them up in job? If someone's burying the company, someone said it. Kevin Kelly, who I'm interviewing tomorrow, did a podcast with you. The behind the scenes is so much more interesting in AEW than anything they're putting on TV. Rampage got its lowest rating in history this past Friday, and they didn't even have any real competition. Why not bring some of this backstage drama in front of the camera? How could it hurt? Because this is what people are talking about. They don't give a crap about your 19 meaningless titles.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I'm personally looking forward to you doing, asking some of the hard questions with Kevin Kelly, because he seems, and I had limited time when doing the interview with Morris Shortle on Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast, but I know you're gonna get to the meat of the matter, and it'll be extremely entertaining. So fans, make sure you hit the notification for that one and all the content on the Hannibal TV, because I wanted to ask you, Hannibal, before we go, you must be really, really fatigued from all the UFO products and news that are happening right now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I'm keeping up with it the best that I can. And I will keep people updated that are interested in that subject. And I got a bunch of good UFO related interviews coming up as well. But Kevin Kelly for wrestling tomorrow. I am working on other wrestling interviews and acquiring more wrestling content, both match and interviews. But what's her name? Christina Gomez, who is a great UFO reporter. I'll be interviewing her on Monday, and on Sunday, I'll be interviewing a guy that worked at a nuclear facility that was actually shut down by UFOs, Bob Salas. So that one's going to be pretty good, because these things have been known to shut down nuclear missiles and also turn them on. So I'm really looking forward to that. And let's hope we last until then, because there's a lot of things these UFOs could be. A lot of people think, I mean, they're either from somewhere else, which might be the best case, or as military black ops, or now they're saying it's Iran or China. If it's Iran or China, that's very, very bad. And if they're not shooting them down because either they don't want to start a war, or they believe that these things might be carrying nuclear missiles and it'll cause destruction, and that might be one of the reasons they're not being shot down. I mean, that could be very bad. So let's hope it's military black ops or visitors from elsewhere monitoring us to possibly make sure that we don't destroy their assets that they have here.
Well, either way, I know we're living in precarious times, uncertain times in the world. But the one
We've
thing
never
you
been
can,
closer to a nuclear war since like
yes,
the Cold War era than this for multiple reasons, not just
yes.
Russia or China, but all the other crap going on, which we won't get into.
Yeah, I was just going to mention closer than the Cuban Missile Crisis, and there's a great deal of uncertainty. But the one thing you can count on is that the Hannibal TV will continue to bring you cutting edge, informative, and entertaining content. And I would encourage you all, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, like this video. Look at that, 400,000 subscribers. Want to thank all the fans that, as I mentioned earlier, are so diehard in support of the channel, in support of myself since I've come on 2+ years ago now, and would continue to encourage you to stay tuned because we have much more to come. Next week, we'll be back with another edition of the Hannibal TV this
Oh,
week.
and this week, just before we throw it in, let's find the results. I'll look it up right now for us. We are going to do another fan discussion, and I did a vote. Let's choose the winner now. The verdict is in on what our next fan discussion is going to be this coming Saturday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. I'll let you say it and close this down. I guess we figured it out.
Wow, it will be old school wrestling themes. That will be definitely a lot of meat on the bone to talk about then. But until next time, folks, Jack Kilby here saying, take care, everybody.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button.